I want to welcome all of you to the 25th episode of Stefan Frank's Photobook show. It's amazing, Stefan. You have done 25 of them. It's really exciting. Thank you so much for doing those. So in this series, for those of you who are new, who haven't been here before for Stefan's Photobook show, he looks at recent and not so recent photo-related books that you might or might not know about. And today's theme is part one of a two-part series called The Big Book. And part two of this series will be on March 26th. So you can already put that into your calendar. I want to tell you a little bit about Stefan. He's an artist and educator living in Germany. And he also published a beautiful book that is called Irgendwo. Is that correct, right? It's called Irgendwo. Yeah,
Right.
all of a sudden I thought that was not correct, but it's called Irgendwo. Anywhere in English. And Stefan teaches a lot of different classes for StrudelmediaLive, from surrealism to Gestalt classes to mentoring intensives. So check out his classes. And yeah, I want to thank you for joining us today. I'm Anja from StrudelmediaLive, and we offer live online photography classes. And as you know, talks, different talks. The talk, Stefan's presentation today will be about 75 minutes long. If you want to watch past photobook shows, you can do so on our YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel and we are putting past photobook shows there. All right. Stefan, I'm going to hand it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anja, for having me again. And I'm very excited to do the 26th installment on that on the 26th February. There's no coincidence in the world. So I'm very happy to see all of you, see some so many familiar faces, but also some new faces. So today I will be talking about what you see here. The big book, Fashion by Mark Power. And as always, I'd like to give you a little bit of an introduction into the topic, because I have been struggling mightily with this book. So let me try to tell you why I think that is. Yeah, Mark Power, Fashion. As you see, so let's start with the big elephant in the room. It's called Fashion, but it's not a fashion book. So there's no fashion in there. It comes from the Greek to make something. So it's all things made by humans. So there's no beautiful models in there. There are no clothes in there. It's just called fashion. And this is probably the first thing that that I'm struggling a little bit with. Weirdly enough, so normally I make books, make these shows about books that I absolutely love and adore, and sometimes there are these books that you just love to hate, and this is one of the books where I just picked it up. I just really wanted to have this because I think his topic is super important, and I wanted to have this book, and I was intrigued by how big it was, that it weighs 3 kilos to go with. I really wanted to have it, and I picked it up, looked at it, and I started to hate it right away, which is weird. And the weirdest thing about this is that the longer I look at it, the more ambiguous I become about it, and I will try to explain to you why this is, why I'm at this weird place right now where I kind of like it, or kind of understand why the book has to be like it is. Let's talk about work, because this is basically what the book is about human labor, about the things we make as humans. And this has a long history in photography. So this is, of course, one of the hallmarks of work photography. This is Louis Hine's Steam Fitter from 1921, which introduced the topic in a way to the world. it's interesting to look at these kinds of pictures because it was both things coming together. That was the beginning of that was in the one of the turning points of industrialization. The steam machines were still in full steam at that point. And at that point, photography was widely available to go into these places and to photograph these places. And it is interesting when you look into art history, there's not a lot of work painting before. There's a lot of Bible painting, of course. There's a lot of royalties. There's a lot of landscape. But you do not find so many people who work in paintings. And there is this unique point of photography who is able to show you this is exactly how this works. Of course, this one picture, this man-machine that you see here, so this unification, this unified structure of the man and his prosthesis in the way of these machines, that was very influential. That ended up in movies like this one. So this is Charlie Chaplin, Modern Times. If you have ever watched this movie, you remember that there is this humorous task on being devoured by the machines that people were producing. And you see Charlie Chaplin moving through the cogs in there. So it's a different take on the relationship on man and his machines that he's producing. This is the other important film of that era. This is Fritz Lang's Metropolis, which brings many different aspects of work here. First, there is this unity of man and machine, again, like in Louis Hine's Steam Fitter. But now man is somehow the slave of the machines. It has also this aspects of class. So there is a upper class, a ruling class that lives in these high towers, lives in these lavish gardens on top of the city, and there is this working class that lives underground and is basically fed into this giant machineries. Of course, this was much closer to this class struggles of the 10er years and the 20s, when you even had this ideas of Marxism that eventually led to the socialist revolution in the USSR. So the world was much closer to thinking about man, machine, capital in terms of class relations. This is something that somehow got lost in the past years. It even has this idea where the boundaries between humans and machines start to blur. It has this female robot that is at the center of it, which led to this kind of funny scenes where Brigitte Helm, who was playing Maria and Futura, so the robot, and on the one hand, and on the other hand, the working woman who was leading the revolution in Metropolis, which had this and the fitting that she had on her to make her look like a robot, that had this funny scenes where she had to be cooled down because it was terribly hot underneath there. Coming back to Louis Hine was working in the 20s for the National Child Labor Committee. So he had this different take on looking at work. He was looking at children who were working at this time. In the early stages of the 20th century, child labor was not prohibited. So many children were working in these in these emerging factories. And Louis Hine worked from 1908 to the mid-1920s for the National Child Labor Community, who wanted to document the working conditions of these children, how they worked in mills, mines, factories, canneries, fields, and on city streets. And Louis Hine made these kind of heartbreaking photos where he photographed small children, 10 or 12 years old. They were had already spent most of their life in these kind of factories, but also in coal mines where their size was used for getting into places where grown-up men couldn't go. And Louis Hine made these heartbreaking photos. So he was not only he was a great portrait photographer, and this is the important thing to see that these people, these children that he photographed, they did not remain anonymous. So they got a face. So suddenly this movement against child labor had an important face to them, which changed the whole story and eventually led to laws coming into place that to abandon child labor. And it's just heartbreaking to see these kinds of photos and to imagine that we're only 100 years removed from these kinds of situations. And for this, he traveled across the US, capturing over 5,100 photographic prints to document this. So this was a huge project that took up a large part of his life. After this, he went on to making more of these heroic photos. So he documented you probably know this photo from him that was done in the building of the Empire State Building. This is a different take on the idea of work. This is the worker as some kind of hero, and this was the way these photos shaped the public opinion about work in a different way. So these people were applauded for the heroism for building these kinds of structure. And this is the other part of work. This is also what we do, so we can be proud on the things we build with our hands. And he documented these kinds of people, and it's interesting to look at these kind of photos from our point of view now, to look at how acrobatic they were doing and how insecure these kinds of work was at that time. Strangely enough, only 5 workers died during the construction of the Empire State Building. Although this number was disputed, but obviously for the time, the security measures and the working conditions, they were much, much better than at other places and at other high-rises. The norm usually expected that roughly 1 desk per $1 million or even 1 desk per floor. And at the Empire State Building has 102-story tower. So usually you would have expected much more people falling to their deaths during this work. And this is the other aspect of work. These are human bodies that are always put in the line of these that always have to work with these machines, and of course they can be harmed by working. So the building went up in about 410 days, 3,400 men on site, millions of labor hours, always have modern harnesses. So this was his task to document this, and this was a heroic effort to build these high rises, and this gave the ideas to the American project of building these kinds of high rises. Strangely enough, often this picture is attributed to Louis Hine, although it is not. Was not Louis Hine. It was also not the Empire State Building. So there's just a mismatch here, and it's also been disputed that this ever happened. And this is supposed to be some early photoshopping here. So, in a documentation about his work, Rick Loomis, who wrote on the history of America and 10 strikes, wrote about his work, about Louis Hine's work. Rick Loomis wrote, "Capitalists built nothing, workers built everything." Glenn Kurtz recovered the stories of the brave man who constructed the Empire State Building masterfully using Louis Hine's famous photographs of them. This is the thing that rang in the back of my head when I approached Mark Power's book here. So it's I think it's still important to think, even though we have abandoned the ideas of Marx from an economic standpoint, it's still workers who produce surplus value. So they always have to have some kind of role in these capitalist societies, and they have a role in our within our machineries. Sebastião Salgado was another photographer who documented workers not in America but in other places of the world. I think this is also important to understand that these kind of working conditions that Louis Hines documented at the beginning of the last century, they were still in place at other places of the world. So this is in the Middle East. Here Salgado is important for documenting the work of women. This is something that is often omitted in documentations about works. It's mostly focused on the work of men. Salgado was one of the first one who showed how important the contributions of women in the workplace, of course, are all over the world, not only in developed countries. He also documented how hard, how tough the working situations is. These are gold mines in his home country, Brazil. And this shows you this is very close when you compare these kinds of images. There were actual images of actual gold mines when you compare these to the fictitious pictures of Metropolis. This is always a picture of class, of working people, of a working class that we see here. Salgado was also the first one who documented these kinds, the burning fields in Iraq after the first Iraq War, when Red Adair and his crew tried to stop these flames. Interestingly, about his work in his early work that was in the 90s, that was a different time when the environmental impact of what we built was not so in the front of our heads. So Salgado was the first one who showed this impact that our work has on the environment and on the planet. So, of course, this huge book, which is another big book, Genesis, talks more about these aspects of how our presence on this world affects pretty much everybody, even people that have nothing to do with our developed countries. They will be affected by this, by what we do, by how we build our machinery. So this is why Genesis goes to places that are far away from machinery, from manufacturing, into places that are not developed, because Salgado wants to make this point that everybody on this planet will be affected by this. Another take on this, of course, is the work of commercial photographers. This is Albrecht Ringer-Patsch. He has been working for several factories who are producing commodities like these mass-produced goods. And Albrecht Ringer-Patsch was someone who tried to bring out the beauty in these mass-produced things. So when he photographs machinery, he is interested in how beautiful. This is where the title comes from. Die Welt ist schön. The world is beautiful. This was his interest, and this is an interesting take on machinery, that to look at machinery for its aesthetic, for the aesthetic pleasures these machines give us. Was also working for Schott, who was making these kinds of glasswares and made these kinds of, which was basically product photography and in commission for the factory that produced this glassware, but also it's just good photography. Ringer-Patsch is someone who wanted to talk about the world, so the interesting part of this book is to compare forms of the natural world, of nature, like these cactuses and these flowers, and bring them together with man-made machinery and with man-made products, and to find comparisons, similarities, and beauty in both of them, and make them comparable. Renger Patsch was part of the new objectivity of Neue Sachlichkeit, which was the approach mostly in Germany to look at the world as it really is. This is why these things like machinery, like workers, this was the first time that this was brought into the focus of art and of course of photography. And these kinds of pictures were what he was famous for. Of course, he worked for, as I already mentioned, he did this kind of industrial photography. He was working for Schott, a glass manufacturer. And a lot of this was shot in commission for Schott, for this manufacturer, to be used in advertising. I have a connection to Renger Patsch because he was photographing and coming from the place where I come from. So he was documenting places in the Ruhrgebiet, in the Ruhr area, in the middle of Germany where I come from. That was at that time in the 40s and in the 20s when he was working The World is Beautiful, that was still dominated by coal and steel. And he was looking at these kinds of factories for their architectural qualities. Of course, these kind of architecture is not made to be beautiful, it's made to be functional, but it's an interesting take to look at these kind of things as if they are just for their aesthetic values. Sometimes he is too romantic, like these shots, but I can feel where he comes from, because this is pretty much how I remember the shots that my father told me about, because he was working as a coal miner in the Ruhrgebiet. And he told me when he saw this picture, yeah, this is exactly how it looked like. Which brings us just to give you these kinds of connection that work has and man-made machinery has, and the idea of bringing together man, manufacturing, machinery, capitalism, labor class, all these kinds of topics that have a role in when you look at work and the things that people fabricate. The photographs in fashion were made by Make Power over a period of 27 years and across 23 countries. Construction site, factories, quarries, shipyards, foundries, recycling facilities, theaters, and other locations. So this is basically a life's work. So a full photographer's life's work. And interestingly enough, it is this century, which I think is important when we look at pictures from the last century. And this is probably where my misunderstanding comes from, because this is kind of misleading. The title, as I said, it has nothing to do with fashion, so it has nothing to do with clothes and beautiful people. It comes from preparing, group of people acting together, from Faschere, to make. So this is the origin of the title. But of course, Mark Power plays with this. He plays with this when he makes a book like this, makes it big and red, and doesn't give away what he's hiding between the covers here. So of course, we know the other meaning of this. It means good style, conformity to fashionable society's taste. This is the other meaning of this. And let's keep this in mind, this idea of conformity. Big book. So this was the first part of a two-part series where we'll be looking at big books like this. This thing weighs 3 kilograms, which, Anja, correct me if I'm wrong, this is 6.3 pounds for those not in the kilogram metrics. 6.6. So this is really heavy. Huge shout out to my local bookshop, because getting this book from the US would have cost me $30. So there is still bookshops. So when you want to buy books like this, go to your local bookshop and have them order this for you. Which brings me on to the big book. And let me stop the sharing here. This is how it starts, and keep this picture, which is a curtain where you have something here in that somehow gives away or leads you into the book. Keep this in mind, because this is somehow the topic of this. The book contains pictures of things humans make. Make no mistake here, Mark Power is a highly competent photographer. He's part of Magnum, so he really knows what he's doing. There are beautiful, breathtaking pictures in here. So this is not the problem that I have with this book. You often find these kinds of relation pictures in here. So this is, of course, it's a great picture, but you see how he works with humans here. There are humans very often used to show you how big the scenery is. They are used very often in how they, in the way they are used in architectural models, where you place these tiny little plastic figures next to a cardboard building, just to give you an idea of the relations of that. And this is how Mark Power often uses people in his books. Very often you see something like this here. As I said, he is a very competent photographer. There are a lot of photographs that are really, really great, like this one. There are really great pairings here. Sometimes you also have no idea why this photo is in here. This is, I've written this note, the anonymous worker. I assume that this is some kind of a worker that works in some of the fabrications that are shown in this book. But part of the book is that it has absolutely no text in it. So apart from the title, there is nothing in it. So even the last page here, it just contains this introductory words that I told you about, that this is how many countries are in there, how many years he worked on. It is some kind of bragging about how many pictures are in there. And we can see that, how many pictures are in there, because, again, this is a big book. But somehow he's deemed it to be useful to talk about this. There are a lot of pictures from the Airbus in here. My guess, because he's not talking a lot about how the pictures are developed and why he brought them together and why he made them in the first place. My guess would be that a lot of the pictures in here were made on assignment. Like here, the assignment of the unveiling of documenting the construction of the Airbus. I don't have a problem with that, because he has to earn a living. But sometimes a lot of these pictures look like they could be used in an annual report for Airbus. And the interesting part of this are the editing decisions that he's sought. Yeah, the structure of this book is not like, I was at this site, I made this and this and this picture, and then I went to the next site, and then I made this and this and this picture. The structure here is different. The structure is made by visual cues. So you see in a lot of his editings, you see that he is working on some kind of visual transformations, like this one here. So here is a sequence that says there's a lot of black and here is a lot of black. So this this is his style of editing. So he breaks apart all the places, all the sites, all the things that are manufactured, throws them into a big bowl, and then just takes out pictures by visual cues. Sometimes, again, the pictures are beautiful and they are beautifully crafted. But if you remove the context of this one here, they could also appear in a product catalog. This is, if you want to sell me this machinery, this is probably the picture that you would put in the catalog for selling this one. This here is the first time that we see the face of a person. And here again, this face of a person, it's casual, so it's a casual observation of someone working in an office. It's not really a portrait. You could call it a portrait, but it's a little bit unclear what we see here. And he's not really interacting with these people. So, and this goes out through all the book. I counted it. There are 7 portraits in this book where you actually see the faces of people, which I find really interesting. And if you go back to Louis Hine, when he was talking about child labor, it's basically only portraits. And this is a different take on manufacturing. He's focused on manufacturing, of course. Sometimes his pictures are brilliant, like this one here. So this is, just to give you this idea of sequencing, there is this hand gesture, and then on the next page there are these dividers that come in here, then there is this hand gesture. These things have nothing to do with each other except for what connects all of our work. Hands are the most useful thing we need to perform our work. But this is a brilliant picture, because on the first take, when you just look at this, you have a hard time of dividing this. You only see a lot of hands. You see these kinds of gloves here. One hand is in glove, the other is naked. There is here another hand that is of a mannequin. So it's not a human's hand, but a already fabricated hand. And once you decode this, you see these kinds of markers of class. It's a uniform. It's a uniform from someone who is high up in class. And this seems to be some kind of a shop person who makes up dresses this mannequin here in a way. So it's a very quick condensation of these kinds of situations where you have people working in a shop, other people selling, buying the goods that are sold in this shop. So it brings up all kinds of relations and groups them into one picture. As I said, you have this kind of themes that run through the book. The hands, the requirement to shelter your hands from all the harm that can happen in this kind of working situations. Again, here is the visual, the editing by visual cues. This is where my ambiguity comes from. Sometimes it's really beautiful and really works for me. This kind of idea that I connect things that are not connected by some kind of documentary approach, but they're just connected by visual cues here, like this and this. They have nothing to do with each other, but they look similar, which gives you some kind of flow through the image. Here again, this is the next portrait in here, the next of 7. You have a lot of these disengaged faces in there, where you sometimes think, what is your mindset when people are working? Is this person concentrated? Is he absent? Is he bored? Is he tired in a way? So, and this just goes on. Sometimes there are pictures in here where I just wrote down here, why? Why is this picture in here? Why do I have to decode what this picture has to do with fashion, with manufacturing, with work? Or is it some kind of makeup that is applied here? Here it goes on. This is the place where he eventually lost me. So he was also working at the Opera Paris the opera in Paris, and this is his take on this. So he throws all kinds of work. So the work in an opera and brings it together with the work in a factory or on a construction site, which is okay. You can do that, but this is a far stretch you have. And here again, he comes from this scenery to this scenery just by a visual cue. So now we're in the opera. Now I don't know where we are. I have no idea. So eventually, because this is a big book which jumps from one place to another and just demands me to have this kind of visual cues to connect everything, he takes a lot of things he demands from me. Here is another take. This is what I mentioned with he's been working on assignments at different places, like at the opera, at Airbus, at a construction site for a tunnel, and he distributes these pictures all over the book. So this is something where I assume, okay, this still belongs to Airbus, and this is what happens with me when I flip through this. I try to reconnect this to, does it belong to the Airbus project or not? Is it somewhere else? I am confused. I have no idea. Is this Airbus? Is this something else? The decisions from page to page, this is genius. This is really fantastic. This is a fantastic sequence. And still in the bigger context of the book, it starts to confuse me. And here he goes from, yeah, that looks like trees. We have no idea if it is trees or if it is something natural or if it is something man-made. So now we go to something where we have the same question. Is it constructed? Is it how are the trees built in an industrialized fashion? He brings up a lot of these kinds of questions, and this is where my ambiguity comes from. I am confused, but am I confused in a good way? Or am I just confused here? Just let me say one thing about these dividers. This is a big book, as I mentioned a couple of times here. So I have no idea what these dividers do. I thought, okay, this is some kind of chapter divides, but actually there are no real chapters and there is not a real difference. It sometimes feels like I just need a breather in here. I just need something to cleanse my palate between the pictures in here. So I've been looking for some kind of reasoning behind this, but I could not really find this. So I just feel, okay, the editor here or the bookmaker felt there needed to be some kind of breathing room in here. This is why these papers were put in here. Let me talk about the other non-unity here. This is something where I assume it is Asia. It looks vaguely like Asian skyscrapes, but again, I don't know. And this is something like the method of the book, to have an idea that it really doesn't matter where it is, that Europe and Asia and the US, they all look alike at this point in time. And the manufacturing, so that we are making our world ourselves now, this is something that has replaced all the differences between the worlds. And I was just asking myself this question, is that really true? So is it really the same to be on a construction site in Asia, somewhere in Asia, where I don't know, than being somewhere in the US or somewhere in France or in Germany? I don't know. The pictures do not talk about this. This is the only smiling person here in this book, which is my other, I don't know, complaint, observation. Nobody seems to have a lot of fun with this. So there does not seem to be a lot of joy with working. And I can understand this, but it is kind of vague why this is. With Louis Hine, this is why I showed Louis Hine. With Louis Hine, it's obvious. It's a suppression. It's child labor. So no wonder the people in his pictures are not happy here. Here it becomes kind of vague why that is. So this is why this picture of a smiling man coming home from a hard day at work, this comes something like a surprise, and it is an outlier, like all the portraits in here are outliers. And let me come to this, because I already mentioned this sometimes. So the idea behind this seems to be, this is where we are in the 21st century. We have replaced the world by the things that we are manufactured. So even our landscapes here right now. So this is something that it looks like a landscape picture, but even this landscape picture is manufactured landscape. So it's something that we produced. So that seems to be the bleak takeaway from this. Just for the formal parts, this is a place where I was really getting angry. This is the only place where we see this. This is the only take on this kind of typology. I find this super interesting. This is a nice element here, but it's the only place where he uses it, where he uses the idea, I photograph everything in a very similar way, which is understandable because the pictures span a career of 27 years. So he's been changing a lot. So this is the only place where he really is consistent here. And this is the only place where you have this flap out, and it's somewhere in the middle of the book, but it never reappears. So you ask yourself, okay, why introduce this element and why use it only once? And why doesn't it work for other places here? And so now I'm really being unfair here. So to Mark Power, because here this is something that we all know. So here, a lot of these books, a lot of these elements in here, they come with references. So this is, of course, a reference to the New West. So one of the classics. Today we only have this books, and all the other books come from. This is from Ghost Books. All the other books come from Steidl. This is, of course, The New West by Robert Adams, which was done at a different place and time. This was part of the new Topographics movement. When you read what Robert Adams wrote about this book, you understand that he was deeply hurt by what was going on around the places in Denver. So this was the beginning of when our landscape changed dramatically. So he documented the places around Denver and how they changed. So he made these kinds of pictures of tract, of the sprawling tract houses surrounding Denver. And all of it, his pictures talk about him being deeply hurt about the vanishing of the natural environment and being replaced by this kind of manufactured housing situations. So this is his topic, this is his theme, and this is his point from which he comes from and from which he develops all his pictures. And of course, this is a classic. Interestingly enough, it has these ideas. It is way thinner, like you see here, and it has these ideas of unity, of time, place, and action. So it's only Denver, it's only a certain time, so it was made in a very consistent way. Everything is super consistent when you look at his pictures. And he has a very consistent topic, and he has a very consistent take on this. And of course, Mark Power references these kinds of pictures when he goes to places where I don't know. It looks to me like Denver, but I have no idea where it is. Could be anywhere in the world. It doesn't have to be the US. And again, we don't know because he doesn't tell us. This is really where he lost me. So he documented the building of how an exhibition was built. This were sculptures by Ron Mueck. He makes these kinds of supersized human figures. And again, he was documenting how this was built up. He was documenting these figures. He was documenting these kinds of weird, absurd situations with reference, again, the man machine. But does it belong in here? Does it belong into fashion, into the things we make, or is it something different? I don't know, and I really can't tell you. But now he opens up another topic where I think the reason why he brought this in is because he has the pictures and he has been there. So this is really where the book starts feeling like a catalog of his work. Sometimes the pictures are just gorgeous, like this one here. This has so many levels of the human, of this protective gear that he's wearing. Some of his pictures, they are really just gorgeous. But again, you don't really see the human here. And again, coming to this, his interest in the pictures are sometimes really formal. So the combinations, this color combination, this is a gorgeous pairing. And this is where my ambiguity comes from. I do not understand the whole book, but some of the pairings, they really blow you away. And then you have something like this. Again, a couple of things later where you think, yeah, great shot, that could be in the annual report of Airbus. Come to some other notes here. This is another decision which I could not really understand. I can see it's a black and white photo. Why? There's only one or two, I guess. The rest is in color. Sometimes it feels like the editing is governed by, yeah, I want to get my greatest pictures in there. But doesn't work for me. And again, this is a great picture. Again, about this idea of the man machine. And here I light, because there's another flip out. Here is another portrait. Again, the anonymous laborer. And let me end on this one here. My ambiguity comes from this one. Maybe I'm just not there where he is. I have no idea why this is in here. That looks to me like stock photography. It's really great stock photography, and there's nothing bad in stock photography. But why is it in here? Because it is manufactured, because it is beautiful, because it works as a picture. And then this one, again, together they work. I can understand that these kinds of visual cues here, that they work together. But how does it fit into the greater picture of the book? Here is another portrait where, again, I don't know. I don't understand. At this point, he lost me because he has so many things going on where I don't have any idea. Why am I looking at this woman photographed in this way? And as I mentioned, remember the first photo and the last photo. This is the curtain that is drawn back, and this is the door that leads to the next chapter, which is probably the next book. And I can understand both decisions from an editing standpoint. It's a good idea to have some kind of bracketing in here. But using it in this way becomes totally generic. It looks like could be the starting page and the end page of any book that could be in here. So it could be about anything, because the door and the curtain, they have nothing to do with his topic, with fashion, with manufactured thing. It's just a good entry picture and a good outro picture. So maybe I don't understand it. So the take on this is this. It drives me nuts, this book, but it also grows on me. So the more often I think about this and about this context-free take on the factory, the more I think, yeah, it's a certain place in time where we are right now. This is how we think about work right now. And let me, before I let you go and open this up for questions, let me show you some examples of making decisions in photo books. So this is Bernd and Hilla Becher, Basic Forms. You can make a career in photography, a long career in photography, and just basically make the same picture over and over again. This is what the Bechers did. You know them for documenting water towers, mining shaft, winding towers. And it's tiny little decisions here to say, I am photographing these things always the same. I'm always using the same vantage point. I'm trying to be as objective about the way I photograph them as it is possible. And I'm very decisive about not only do I put them here and photograph them everywhere on the world, like here in Hamm, which is where I come from, in the Ruhrgebiet, in Lünen, but there's also winding towers from France. So, and they look different, and you only see that they look different when you photograph them absolutely the same. And here is the decisive decision to say, I write what it is. I write down it's a winding tower, and I write down where it is. And I make a completely boring book of pictures where everything is just the same. And this is where the power of this book comes from. And there is no deviation here. They do not... I really want to see pictures of their children on Christmas that Bernd and Hilla Becher made. So maybe they are photographing them in exactly the same way. So, but they make decisions. And let me show you the other book that I wanted to bring up. This is something that has been recently reprinted. And Anja mentioned that I'm never showing Steidl books. I'm a great fan of Steidl. I'm just not a fan of their current work right now, but they are brilliant in reprinting the classics here. This is a classic by Jakob Tugner, a Swiss photographer who has been working between the wars for a factory. And here, this again, not a big book. And he makes right off the bat, he makes a decision to make a person, a worker, on the first page. And he brings the surrounding of the factory into this. And he makes these wonderful portraits, and I have to applaud Steidl a little bit. This is how photo books have to feel. It's a matte paper, and you can quite literally you can feel the photo because it's offset printing. So you feel that this is different, printed very, very different. So, and this is the portrait that you see here. And this is what Tugner is interested in. He is interested in people working in a factory and the dignity that this takes on. And this is why all his portraits are super strong. And they show people that have some kind of connection to their work. Here reappears the Charlie Chaplin shot, the man machine, the guy who gets submerged with his machinery. So he's not, it's not only one message that he brings. He's also talking about how our machinery changes us. Sometimes these pictures are just gorgeous that he does. And this is one of the pictures that is would be missing in Mark Power's book, because here Tugner is talking about the surroundings. And this again becomes a picture about class, because this is where the working class works and this is how the working class lives. These are the houses where people, where the workers live. And when he talks about scale in this way. And of course, he is fascinated, just like Mark Power is fascinated by the things we produce. This is why he's photographing these kinds of machineries in this way. And just to show you the level of complexity, Switzerland was producing guns in the 30s. So he was working in a factory that was during the Second World War has started to produce munition for both sides. So this is the other part of being neutral during the war. It is profiting from war. So this is another picture that is very simple, but it drags in the whole context of manufacturing, the whole historic context, complex connections that manufacturing has. And of course, he ends with a beautiful portrait in the end. So this is Jakob Tugner. This is another way to talk about manufacturing in a non-isolated way, in a non-fashionable way, and this is why I'm so probably so annoyed by this book. It has this kind of level of conformity. So it's almost like it always feels like an affirmation of the place we live in right now. With no mentioning about the connections, about the impact on the planet that these manufactured goods have. With no talk about the inequality that these things produce. So, but again, as I said, I'm ambiguous, and I love some of the pictures, I love some of the editing in here, and really you have to look into it, and maybe you arrive at a different take. The other problem that I have with this is something that we will talk about in the next installment with this book a little bit more. It is, how do you actually do this? How do you bring structure in books that are thick like this one here? This is Geo Engström's Dimmer, Brummer, Mist. So it's also a life's work of pictures. So there we will talk about structure in big books. And this is all I have for you today.
Thanks for showing the spine. That is definitely making us understand better how big those books actually are.
Yeah.
Hey, Stefan, I have one very simple kind of technical question. I was just wondering about, these books are so thick. Is the paper particularly thick, heavy paper, or is it the page count that is making them so thick?
No, it's a page count. It's a page count. So
because there are books that have very heavy paper and they wind up being much thicker than they would be, but
let's talk about the central aspects of this. This is glossy technical paper here. And it's beautifully printed, but it does not really feel beautiful. This is different from this one, where I thought, okay, I want to touch these pages, because this is a different paper here.
And that's a matte paper.
Right. Yeah, this is a matte paper that you see. It doesn't reflect anything. So it's just these. This is how you get these deep blacks. And again, I have no idea if this is digital printing. It feels like could be digital printing. This is offset printing. So this is something where you know, okay, you can feel the paint on the paper. You can feel the ink. But in both cases, so you have to have some kind of compromise here. So you cannot print a picture, a book that is that thick on this kind of paper. That simply doesn't work. I think also from an economic point of view. So I have no idea if this is digitally printed or if this is offset printed. It feels like it could be digitally printed.
Just one other quick question. Is there anything in the in that matte book that mentions the specific kind of offset printing? I'm just wondering if they're doing like UV printing on it, because matte paper sometimes it's hard to get really deep, rich blacks and things.
Now we're entering the rabbit hole of Georg Steidl. There is an endless number of videos by Georg Steidl on his printing methods. And I don't have them right now, but I can post them later. And he's talking endlessly about how he does it, how he achieves this kind of black and white printing. He also did reprints of Eggleston books, which are really beautiful. So there he talks about how endlessly he tried to reproduce this dye transfer prints for Eggleston in book form. So,
Stefan, do you know if those videos, the Steidl videos, are on YouTube?
Yes, they are. Just look it up on YouTube. You find him rapping on endlessly about why he prints, how he prints, and you cannot shut this guy up. So, but it's really great. So.
Cynthia, did you have a question?
Well, I was curious about the mat and the paper and the printing, just based, it was a similar thing about, I had an infatuation with black and white for so long and black and white mat. And then, and then I got more flexible. I decided not to have a preconceived notion, just to follow my nose more. And they're so different. And I'm interested to know about, the paper, if it, I want to see those videos on YouTube. That's what I want to do. That will answer all my questions.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I think the big thing right up front is digital printing versus offset printing. There is this legend that digital printing is almost on par with cheap offset printing. This is not cheap offset printing. So when you do offset prints, you get actual black ink on the page, and this is where something that you have really troubles to achieve complete blackness, which is something that you can see here, where it's hard to really get really dark blacks in here. And this is when you look at some of the Tugner pictures here, like this one here. This is a different kind of black than this one. And this is something that you only get with actual offset printing, where you really apply paint on the paper.
Edward?
Yes. I was just going to mention, the really high-end digital printing is sort of similar to offset. It's called digital offset, and it's actually putting ink onto the page, but through a process. And that stuff looks great. I mean, I can't really tell the difference, but
Edward, could you read the comment, please, in the chat?
From Victoria?
From Lars. Victoria is saying that there is an exhibition in Paris of work by Sebastião Salgado, in case anybody's passing through Paris or is in Paris. Yeah. She's recommending that. Edward, I meant the comment from
the last one. And this is from Lars Sundal. He says, my initial reaction to seeing Mark Power's book is a bit like seeing Evidence by Sultan Mandel for the first time. Is it's all a riddle, but too clinical or perfect?
That is an interesting point. I haven't thought about Evidence. I think that the difference is that sometimes Sultan and Mandel they do not photograph themselves. So they use these archive photos, and these archive photos, they have no intention to be good photos. They just have the intention to show clearly what they want to document. And this removes a lot of vanity from the pictures. And that opens them up to weird situations, when I remember Evidence correctly. And of course, this is not what Mark Power is after. This is why he ends up with pictures that are gorgeous, because he stands there and is interested in the formal qualities of that. Of course, but I get the comment when you look at something like this here, which is an almost casual and absurdist shot of the man machine here. It looks totally casual and unstaged. But there is, yeah, that's a good point. There are elements of this are actually in here, where you are just, where you are just confused by the riddles that these pictures are posing. But again, I'm still on this idea of a big book. One riddle, I'm okay. 2 riddles is fine. 10 riddles, okay. By 100 riddles, I tend to lose my focus a little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit. And then there comes an Airbus shot, and all the magic is gone, because I know, okay, he's been in Airbus and has made a lot of shots at Airbus.
The Airbus shot did it for you. That was it. Are there any questions from anybody? I want to remind you that the part 2 of this talk will be on March 26th. So I hope we will see you then.
Yes.
Stefan, thank you so much. This was really wonderful again. Wow, yeah, I will probably not purchase this one, but who knows? I might flip through it.
No, but please, I can. There is something in here, so it's not. I wouldn't talk about books if they are just stupid books. So this is certainly not a stupid book. This is certainly not a bad book. So it raises a lot of questions. If you get the takeaway, this is not a working book. I think there is something in there worth discussing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you all for being here. And Stefan, thank you so much for this wonderful talk. And we'll see you all on March 26th.